important in many different applications, such as aligners, orthodontics, restorative, and many different dental appliances. Taking a full arch scan properly is a key skill to have. When scanning, there's a scanning protocol that you should follow. This basically means how do you move the scanner in the mouth. The better you use the scanning protocol, the more accurate your scans will be. You also want a smooth and logical scanning flow without requiring too many stops. The first image you take is critical, as the scanner will build the entire scan on that first image. And this is why when taking a full arch scan, we start on the occlusal aspect of the last molar. There's a lot of reference detail here for the scanner, such as the fissures, the cusps, and that enables the scanner to easily create an image without stopping. From this point, you basically move the scanner over to the occlusal part of the molar on the other side in a smooth motion. You want to do this as steady as possible, and you don't want to stop too many times. When you get to the other side, you then move towards the anterior aspect. And it's common to have to tilt the scanner slightly buccally or lingually when you do so that you don't lose alignment and don't lose your position. From there, you basically move over to the other side where you started. And it's all a very straightforward process. While doing so, once you're at this stage, you then go across the occlusal aspect and start to scan the palatal aspect. And again, you're moving in one simple motion to the opposite side. You reach the posterior aspect and you reach the opposite side and your scan should be completed. And it's as simple as that, really. This is how you take a full arch scan, and something that would have taken 3 to 5 minutes using PVS impression can take under 40 seconds with an intraoral scanner. At this stage, there's likely some areas of data that you're missing. And the handy thing about scanners is that you can go back and add to your scan. Unlike an impression where if you have an air bubble in a key area, you have to repeat the impression. So that's a top arch scan done. Let's go over the bottom arch. The bottom arch is very similar, and it's the same protocol as the top. You start on the occlusal aspect of the last molar. You move towards the occlusal aspect of the molar on the opposite side of the arch. Again, you may need to tilt the scanner in the anterior region so you don't lose alignment. Once you reach the opposing molar, you tilt the scanner this time to the lingual aspect, and you move in a smooth motion to the opposite side. You cross the occlusal surfaces, and then this time you take a scan of the buccal surfaces. And usually when you're taking a scan of the buccal surfaces, a key thing to realize is you want to scan about 2 to 3 millimeters of the gingiva as well, as it becomes important for the bite registration. Once you've done that, you move over right back to the opposite side on the buccal aspect, and you complete the scan. At this stage, you are done, and as usual, you check for any areas of missing data that may have been missed, or common areas or interproximal areas that you need to capture again, and you can go back and capture these spots. The handy thing is about scanners, like I mentioned, is that you can also manipulate the scans. You can, if you captured the tongue or the cheek, you can erase that and rescan them again, rather than starting over. So this is a quick video example of just some scan refinements and how to manipulate the scan. You can see in the small box in blue, I deleted some of the data that was captured by the cheek, and now I go back to rescan and capture the molar properly. You can also keep scanning and refine any areas that you need to. The last part of the puzzle is the bite registration. So this is very similar to traditional techniques. It basically aligns your top and bottom scans that you have just taken. When taking a bite registration, as usual, make sure the patient is biting properly. This can be more difficult if the patients are numb, but I'm sure you all have experience with this. The easiest way I find is just to tell them to bite hard on their back teeth, check that they're biting properly, and start your bite registration. Here's a little video again. You can see I get them to bite, and then I slide the camera near the buccal aspect, near the cheek, and then I start the scan. And what I'm doing is basically aligning the top and bottom arches together. You can do it two ways when doing a bite registration. You can get them to bite down and then take the scan, or you can have them open, put the scanner in, and then get them to bite down and then start the scan. It really doesn't matter. To go over that with these pictures, so once a patient is biting down, place the scanner posteriorly and facing the occlusal table, and then start the scan in a zigzag pattern, slowly moving the scanner anteriorly, while also tilting the scanner up and down to capture aspects of both the top and buccal gingiva. Once the scan is aligned, the software will let you know. And this is typically done in real time because it will combine the two arches together that you have already scanned, as you can see here. So once your bite registration is done, you have just successfully finished your full arch scans. And like I mentioned before, I mean, there's endless benefits to this. And one of the main benefits most dentists realize is just speed. To take full arch impressions takes a long time. It's not very comfortable. And here for us in our hands, we can take full arch scans, top and bottom, and a bite registration under 2 minutes. So how do you get a perfect scan? Well, soft tissue management is the key. And a scanner is a camera, like I mentioned, so it will only pick up what you can see and what the scanner itself can see. So make sure there's no soft tissue covering the scan surfaces. For example, if you've done a crown prep, you need to make sure the margin of the tooth is not covered by any gingiva because it simply won't work. It's really simple. Look in your mirror, and if you can see all the margins clearly, you're generally okay to scan. If not, you may have some work to do. And it's a common question I get asked about scanners and deep margins. You know, can they scan deep margins? And the simple answer is yes. I mean, scanners have a very large depth of field these days. There's no issue with deep margins. You just need to control the soft tissue appropriately. And how do you control the soft tissue? Well, there's many ways to achieve this. I'm sure all these techniques you'll be familiar with because it's similar to traditional impressions. Gingival retraction has been around for many, many years, and it's still extremely useful for scanning, particularly for deeper margins. The gingival retraction cord helps displace any soft tissue covering the margins. And a key thing to realize with scanners is, unlike impressions, the retraction cord is left inside when scanning. You don't take it out. There's also all sorts of different products these days. X-Spacil is one example, and you can even do gingival troughing with a laser. It really depends case by case, and whichever product doesn't matter really. You just need to make sure that the crown margins are clear. And if you're doing a full arch scan, it's even easier because you're not dealing with gingiva close to the crown margins. The other key factor when taking a scan is to ensure a smooth and steady scan flow. And this takes practice, and probably the aspect that people struggle with the most when they start, especially when we're training dentists here. I see a lot of problems with this aspect, with dentists going either too slow or too fast, or stopping and starting the scanner too many times. The key thing really is just to follow the scan protocols and try not to overscan if you can help it. What you see, if the scanner has captured an image and it looks clear, you don't need to go over it many times. It won't make the scan any better. So that's really a crash course of scanning. And scanning is a really logical process. And what it really comes down to is practice. The easiest way to get better at scanning is to just get a scanner or trial a scanner if you have reps in the area, and to keep trying and trying until you get the hang of it. So with scanners out of the way, let's go over some intraoral scanner reviews, because this can be quite intimidating when you hear of all the different scanners on the market. Like I mentioned, these days there's a lot of options now, and we will go over some of the main scanners on the market. Not all of them obviously due to limitations, but we'll go over the leaders really that I see in the market, and that's CEREC Prime Scan, the Trios 4, the iTero Element 5D, and the Medit i500 scanners. And these are all scanners that I've personally used in the clinic and have experience with. So I'll summarize a lot of this information for you due to the time limitations today. On that note, however, we have reviewed all these scanners in detail. I've written thousands and thousands of words of reviews on all of these scanners. So if you're looking for more in-depth information after this presentation, you can check there. If you have any other questions also, please feel free to email me or contact me. So let's start off with the CEREC Prime Scan. Most of you will be pretty familiar with CEREC. That's a very popular brand. And this is Dentsply Sirona's latest scanner released in 2019. And it's probably the most popular scanner on the market. So CEREC is a very old company in the scanner game. You know, they've been doing this for many, many years, and they really revolutionized dentistry. I think the first CEREC goes back to 1985. So they have a lot of experience in this field. The CEREC Prime Scan is a premium product. The scanner is very expensive at around 75,000 USD with this CAD software, so with the designing software. But you can get it for half the price without any CAD design software, so just the scanner alone. You do get what you pay for, however, because the Prime Scan is a great scanner. There's a lot of technology in this machine. It's super fast, it's very accurate, and the AI built into the scanner is best in class. And what I mean by AI is basically when you scan, if the software recognizes that you've scanned the tongue or the cheek, it will automatically remove that for you. However, the main advantage of the CEREC is the same-day workflow. You know, the CEREC are basically the inventors of same-day crowns. And part of the reason that they're so good at this is they have an amazing milling machine, and the software is very refined. It's very easy for anyone to do it. And in our clinic, even our dental nurses do a lot of the designing and milling for us. So we've been using the CEREC system for same-day restoration for years. This is an example of it, and it's a flagship feature of the system. A patient can easily walk into the practice and walk out with a very nice ceramic crown, inlay, or veneer in around an hour or 2 hours, depending on the material you use. So what's the downsides? Well, the main downside is it's expensive. It's the most expensive scanner on the market. And for those who have no interest in doing same-day crowns, it doesn't really make sense. There's cheaper scanner on the options. The other thing really with the cost is we know that cost is the main barrier for entry for most dentists. The handy thing is the cost is decreasing every year with newer, cheaper scanners coming on the market. It also has a yearly subscription like most of these scanners, and it's called the CEREC Club. And you can opt out of this if you want, but it's not recommended. The CEREC Prime Scanner is also a very large and heavy scanner. It's one of the heaviest scanners on the market. You can see it on the left there. And next door to that is the Trios 4, the Medit i500, and the Plan Mecha Emerald. It's not the biggest downside, but you do notice its size. So next up, the Trios 4. This is another premium scanner released by 3Shape. The Trios 4 ranges from about 34,000 to 50,000 USD. And that's depending on the configuration you buy, meaning either you can get it as a cart, like a whole trolley system, or you can get it as a pod, which is basically what you see there in the picture, and that can just be plugged into any computer. Trios 4 is another fast and easy to use scanner. Trios and 3Shape are probably the main competitor for CEREC, and it's a lot lighter than the Prime Scan. The interesting thing about the Trios 4, it's also the only wireless scanner on the market, which is a unique feature and makes it quite convenient to use. Trios 4 offers a range of different useful features that CEREC doesn't, like caries detection, smile design, orthodontic simulations, all built into the software. And this is what comes back to what I was mentioning, that scanners now are not just a scanning tool, but a communication tool. So the main factor the 3Shape system stands out is the software ecosystem. 3Shape basically does it all. You know, their software can do everything you can imagine: indirect restorations, implant guides, aligners, bracket guides, splints, night guards. And really no other scanner does all of this on its own. And so it's obvious that 3Shape has invested a lot in their software. The only other way of doing all of this is to use a third-party software like ExoCAD, which is a whole different story. So here's an example of one of my favorite 3Shape software, and it's the Smile Design. And I'm sure many of you may have heard of Smile Design. It's an excellent communication tool. And for this to be incorporated in a scanner works very nice as a communication tool. There's a nice touch with the slider, which is a before and after slider that can be used to show the patient any results of cosmetic treatment. And again, it's an excellent communication and treatment planning tool. The main downsides of the Trios, again, is it comes back to cost and subscriptions. And that's a common theme with a lot of these scanners. The Trios 4 ranges from about 37 to 50,000 USD, which again makes it one of the more expensive scanners on the market now. The subscriptions for the Trios 4 are quite a major issue. And that's because unlike other scanners, with the Trios 4, you can't use it at all if the subscription is not paid. And if you opt for any of the software modules I mentioned, these also have subscriptions to them. So it becomes quite costly. Next up is the Itera Element 5D. The Itera scanners have been known for a long time as the Invisalign scanners. And if you didn't know, AlignTech, who own Itera, also own Invisalign. So it's all bundled up. The Itera Element 5D is another high-end scanner. It has a price tag of 40,000 USD or around there. And it comes in two options, again, a USB scanner or a cart. Now, the main benefits of the Itera Element 5D is the near-infrared caries detection. So now scanners are becoming caries detection tools. And in the Itera, it's one of the best features for the scanner because it can be incorporated quite well for patient examinations. It's the only scanner as well that takes these images all in one. So you can do a scan, you can get caries detection, you can take digital impressions and intraoral images all in one scan. The main factor that makes the Itera scanner stand out, however, is Invisalign. These are basically the Invisalign scanners. And apart from CEREC OmniCam and Trios 3, no other scanners are accepted for Invisalign. The Itera scanners can also be integrated with Exocad, which I mentioned earlier, which is basically a third-party design software because these scanners alone don't have actually a design software in them. This is an example of the ClinCheck simulations with the Itera scanner. And what ClinCheck basically is, it's an orthodontic simulation. You can take a scan of a patient and it can show them a before and after image of a liner treatment. And again, this is a very powerful communication tool for the patient. So you can scan the patient and the software basically aligns their teeth. So this sort of orthodontic simulation and automatic segmentation is only found in the Trios and Itera scanners. This is an example of the caries detection technology. And again, it's another cool feature. And it's nice to have in a scanner. Excuse me. So it's obvious these scanners are becoming more and more, communication and treatment planning and diagnostic aids and not just scanning tools. And so you can see here, you can take a scan and it shows you the digital impression in the middle, the caries detection in the top right, which is black and white, and actual intraoral images on the bottom right. So what's the downsides of this scanner? Well, to start off, it's a very, very large scanner. It's a bit obnoxiously big. So let's get the obvious out of the way. The scanner itself is one of the largest and heaviest on the market. It's close to 500 grams. And as you can see here, the Element 5D on the left side and all the other scanners next door to it, there's no comparison. It's much bigger than all the rest. The only close scanner that gets close to the size of the Itera Element 5D is the Prime Scan. The scan is also expensive. Again, this is a recurring theme. 40,000 USD is a sizable investment, and it's just a scanner with no CAD software. The factor about the Itera scanners, these are really designed for dentists who are already doing Invisalign. So if you're doing Invisalign, this is the scanner to go for. On top of the large cost, it also has an expensive subscription, and that costs a few thousand per year. And it's all tied with selling a number of Invisalign cases per year. The last thing, really, the downside of it is it's just simply not as fast as the other scanners. When you're spending this sort of money, there's faster scanners out there. Lastly, we'll talk about the Medit i500. Now, this is a very popular scanner all across the world. And this is because it's very cheap, much cheaper than all the others we talked about. And it's a very cheap and affordable way to get into scanning. So it was released 2 years ago by a Korean company, and it's priced at 18,000 USD. So this makes it easily one of the most cost-effective options out there. Unlike all the other scanners, the Medit has no subscription cost, so you're not paying yearly fees to own it. It does have a subscription cost, however, with its cloud storage. So when you take scans, most of these scanners store them on a cloud. And after about, I think it's a 10 gigabyte limit, it can cost to keep them stored on the cloud. Although it is a cheap scanner, it's quite an impressive scanner, and especially given its price point. Here's some examples of some scans that we took with the Medit, and we've been using it for the past year and a half. And overall, it's like I say, there's not much more to say than it's a very effective scanner for its price point. It's quite impressive because it's much cheaper than all the other premium products, and it scans very well. The main downsides of the Meta i500 is that it has no associated CAD/CAM element. So it has no design software and it doesn't have a milling machine. So it's never going to compete with something like the Ceric for same-day crowns. I'm personally a big believer that buying a scanner just to replace impressions is not the main benefit. Most of the benefit of digital dentistry comes from CAD/CAM, from milling and designing in-house. Overall, however, the scanner is quite good. It comes with a good software for analyzing and manipulating the scans. It doesn't come with orthodontic simulation or smile design like the others, however. It is a fast scanner, but it's not the fastest, especially when compared to more expensive options like the Trios or the Ceric. The other thing about the Medit is, I'm not sure if any of you use Invisalign, but it's not accepted by Invisalign. So that's basically it. That's a crash course for all of the reviews. And there's many out there, and we can only really cover a few due to the time limitations. So for those who want more information, we've basically tried and tested all the major scanners on the market. And this is a summary of what we have found. You can download this from our website, or if you want more detail, you can check our comprehensive scanner reviews on our website. So that's enough from me. I think it's a good time to go over some questions and answers now. And that will help me tailor, the knowledge that you guys want to learn.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. There is a question from Dr. Rahul Pandey.
Please.
Yeah, can intraoral scanner record functional impressions or movements of muscles like those required for making complete dentures?
That's a really, really good question.
Yes.
The short answer is yes, but not in a dynamic fashion. So you can scan functional areas. So for instance, if you were opening someone's bite with a leaf gauge, you can scan them in a normal bite and then open their bite and scan it then. But you can never scan dynamically like a video camera. What is useful, however, is that in CAD software, a lot of these CAD softwares are quite sophisticated now, and you can replicate a lot of the functional movements in the CAD software itself, like lateral excursions.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask, like the technique of scanning. So all work on the same principle, or there's some difference in the technique as well? So would you like to comment something on that?
Yeah, of course. And that's a really good question. And the short answer is that they're all very, very similar. And the technique I showed you there is probably the most common technique that all scanners use. There's some very minor variations to this. The one that comes to mind is with the iTero. If you're going to scan, let's say, a crown preparation, how it works for the iTero, it's a bit convoluted. You scan the preparation first, then you scan the entire arch, then you scan the opposing, and then you scan the bite. So there's some added scans. But in terms of the scanning protocol, like how you move around the mouth, it's all very similar. Some scanning companies recommend you first scan the palatal, then the buccal. Some scan the buccal, then the palatal. But personally, I haven't found big differences there. It's always the same, occlusal and then buccal or palatal, and then you swing around and then you do the other side.
Okay. I don't think there would be any difference if the person wants to scan them tooth-wise or area-wise, like the posterior teeth done first and then interior, then the other side posterior. I don't think it should matter a lot.
No, and even if you're only doing a quadrant scan, it's very similar as well. You just stopped earlier. So if you're doing a quadrant scan, rather than go, you start at one molar, and rather than go to the other side, you would stop at the canine and then move buccally and then go to the back and then move to the front. So it's all very similar. It's all the same protocol.
So Dr. Swati wants to ask, are all these scanners compatible with any milling unit? How to ensure that contacts are tight when designing, flaws tight when designing?
That's a really good question. Okay, so all scanners now are open. So maybe 5 years ago, scanners were closed, meaning when you took a scan, the file that you used to make, the scanning file, which is typically an STL, a PLY, or a OBJ, those are the three file types. Back in the day, you couldn't export those out. Now, under market pressure, because so many scanners came on the market that were open, all scanners now are open. What that means is you can pick up any scanner, scan, and take out the file. Now, what you do with that file really depends. So, ExaCAD is another open source CAD software. iTero, which is a line, recently purchased them for 419 billion. So that might change if they want to lock it, but for now it's an open source CAD software. So what that means is I can take any scan, put it in ExaCAD, design any restoration, and mill it to any milling unit that's also open. The only major difference, really the only exception, is CEREC. CEREC software, the CAD chairside software, is completely locked to CEREC. And the milling machine for CEREC is locked to CEREC. You can't use it. And that's basically because they know they have a very good product. The way to get around that is if you use the lab software of the CEREC, you can mill to their software. What that means is I can pick up a Trios scan, send it to the lab CEREC software, and then mill from the CEREC machine, if that makes sense. So long story short, CEREC is basically locked because few dentists will have the lab software. All the other machines are open, including 3Shape. You can import any scan into 3Shape and mill to any machine that's connected. And most milling machines now are all open. Planmeca, VHF, Roland, DG Shape. These are all milling machines that work. In terms of how to ensure a good contacts, it really just comes down to your design, and it's much simpler than you expect. And achieving good contacts was something I found dentists were very hesitant 10 years or 5 years ago because there was a lot of uncertainty with the machines. And the machines back then weren't very predictable. These days, if you design well, it's guaranteed that the contacts, the occlusion will be perfect. I mean, a lot of the time we do crowns almost every day, and every time it's perfect. It just comes down to your design. And that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one more question from Dr. Jagdish. Is there any error rate for different scanning machines?
That's a good question. The long story short is that there is, and you see scanning studies a lot of the time. You know, every company releases their own scanning studies, and there's some third-party researchers that release studies that show, you know, this scan is the most accurate or this scan is the least accurate. What I find realistically, based on the mainstream scanners, you know, some really cheap scanners, you know, coming out of China and stuff, I'm not sure what their accuracy is, but these well-established brands, what I can say clinically is that they're all accurate enough, especially for quadrant work. You know, if you're just doing crown and bridge, more than accurate enough. And that's evidenced by the thousands of restorations clinicians are making all around the world using these scanners. Really, the test of scanning comes from full arch implant prosthetics. That's where accuracy becomes a lot more important. And the funny thing about accuracy is what we're realizing now is that the operator is the key part of accuracy when using a scanner. So operator error or not using the right scanning strategies or just not scanning properly will greatly reduce accuracy. Yeah. So if you're doing complicated implant prosthetics, you know, full arch prosthetics, then it becomes more of an issue. For simple crown and bridge work, they're all more than accurate enough. And a lot of these research papers that come out, you know, they're measuring very, very, very small measurements that realistically, I'm not sure if they're clinically significant for crown and bridge. You know, you think about the cement gap or cement spacer, it's quite a large space anyway.
Yeah. So Dr. Mohammed Faisal wants to know, can these scanners be used to scan a maxillectomy defect as well, like for an obturator, or they are just for dental scans? So any intraoral bony area contour, can they scan that too? Or if
It's a
not
great
these,
question.
yeah.
And it's funny because I've done a few talks with Indian doctors, and I always get these pathology questions. Um, and I know that in India, you guys see a lot of these pathologies and big surgeries that in New Zealand it's just unheard of. So I can't personally say I've used it for anything like that. I have seen through dental groups that there's few surgeons around the world, instead of impression using something like a scanner. The key difficulty with a scanner and these sort of things, I would think, is just how do you get an accurate scan? With an impression, you can, you know, inject impression into a space and then pull it out and get an accurate 3D representation. With a scanner, it would be much more difficult to put the scanner inside, somewhere in the maxilla and take a scan of that. If it was surface level, yeah, you can, without a doubt. I mean, a scanner is not designed just to pick up teeth and gums. It will, anything that the laser or the light reflects off, it will capture. So people scan all sorts of things, their fingers, toys, anything really.
But most of these scanners have the software picking up only the dental part or the gums area. So I don't think many of these scanners are open to scan fingers as well.
To be honest, a lot of the software, all it does is it just triangulates, what the sensor does is it captures all these images, and it just makes a mesh, a 3D mesh of the object. And a lot of the software, what it's doing is just refining that and adding color to the object. So indeed, I mean, a lot of these scanners can easily pick up fingers. It doesn't know any different. It's not as fast as teeth, but it doesn't find any difference as long as the light is reflecting off the object and captured by the sensor. Because we've personally tried it with CEREC, we've tried it with Medit. Yeah, they do seem to be able to capture anything. And a classic test is with a baseball. People always do this test with a scanner. The seam of a baseball, which is like quite a complicated 3D object, they will scan that and follow that, and the scanner has no issue. So the software itself doesn't really place limitations on what object you're scanning. It really just depends on, can the light reflect off it.
Yeah. So they can easily be used to scan
Anything
ear,
you like.
nose, yeah.
Yeah, anything you like. Face scanners are coming more popular now. Not face scanners per se, but I know for the Medit Omni, in their software now, you can use the scanner to scan the lips, and then you can incorporate that into an intraoral scan. So they can capture anything.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Shuchi Tripathi wants to know how easy or difficult it is to record any undercut area.
Very easy, amazingly easy. And that's a very good point. I'll just grab some water. Sorry, my throat is quite.
Yes, please.
Sorry about that. That's a really amazing point you bring up, because another really key aspect of scanners, especially when doing crown and bridge, is it gives you instant feedback about your preparation. And what I mean by that, a lot of the time when we do a crown or a bridge, you take an impression and you look at it, you don't really know if it looks good or not. You send it to the lab, and then the lab tells you, hey, hold on, the bridge preps are not parallel, or you have a very large undercut. With scanning, you scan it, and on the software itself, the software is designed, if it has a CAD software, a lot of these scanners do these days, they have basic undercut simulation, even something like the Medit. And what you can see instantly is the undercut, even the smoothness of the prep, it will tell you. So that can instantly be fed to you, and you can refine your prep and then scan again. And what I really find with all our associates is that it improves their dentistry, because when they're doing these preps and they're scanning, and every day they're seeing their preps, you naturally improve, because you're getting a lot of feedback about, is your margin smooth? Is there any undercuts? These sort of things.
Yeah. Dr. Faisal also wants to know if we can use these scanners in cases where there's limited mouth opening, or to what amount of mouth opening can they be used?
Great question. I want to see if I have a scanner here, but I have a scanner somewhere here. I want to show you the size of it, and that's a really good question. And what it comes down to is the bigger scanners are much harder, and it really it's quite a hard question to answer, because how long is a piece of string? You know, in severe cases of trismus, there's no chance. You won't, it's not possible to insert the scan and rotate and everything. But I've seen patients, you know, every single day, hundreds of them, much like you guys, and very rare or never have I needed to pick up impression because I couldn't scan them, ever. So it's definitely feasible. And the handy thing with the scanner tips is they're quite small. I mean, how I think of it is, if you can get a handpiece in the patient's mouth, you can get a scanner in the patient's mouth.
Okay. Thank you. There's one more question. Will it record lateral excursion movement as well, apart from the centric one? So
That's perfect.
usually, yeah.
Again, it doesn't record it itself. The scanner software can simulate that. And so what the scanner software can do, if you take an upper and lower scan, most scanner software have this, is where they can articulate it using Bonwell's triangle, so just some average figures. You don't need a Facebook. It's not the most accurate, but it does the job in some cases. And so as long as you have a sufficient scan, like a full arch, and you have all the canines, the scanner software can articulate this in Bonwell's triangle and show you excursive movements in real time. You literally click a button and you can see the upper arch moving up over the bottom arch. So a lot of the software does these sort of things, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Dr. Jagdish wants to know about the subscription feature. So what software would you recommend, or what intraoral scanner would you recommend with the, who doesn't have an annual subscription and could be
Great question. So the easy way to answer that question is, which scanners don't have a subscription? Because most do. And so when you think about which scanners don't have a subscription, there's really one that has a CAD software, like a design software, which is Plan Mecha Emerald, which is an okay scanner. I wouldn't say it's the best, but that is the only scanner that you can design crowns on without a subscription. All other scanners that design crowns have a subscription. Then you look at, okay, if you're not interested in designing crowns, which scanner only, meaning you scan and you can export the file and give it to your lab, don't have a subscription? And the answer to that is all of them don't have. Like the Medit doesn't have a subscription. There's other ones, like an American company called Heron makes a scanner only. There's many Chinese scanners, and it really comes down to what you want to achieve. I would say, I mean, if you just want a scanner with no subscription, the Medit is one of the best affordable scanners now on the market. And that's purely because you want a scanner that's going to work, you know? You don't want to spend a little bit of money and get a piece of junk that you never use. So the Medit is probably the most effective. That's not to say that others are not good. You know, there's still, I mean, I tested a Chinese scanner. It does the job, but it's probably not as smooth. I'm going to test the Heron scanner, which the American company is sending me, so I can't really say much about that. But from my experience in terms of scanning and the price tag of the Medit, which is 18,000 with no subscriptions, it's quite hard to beat. Their software is also quite sophisticated. It doesn't make crowns. It doesn't design any restorations. But what it does do is allow you to analyze the scans in great detail. Even implant positions, it's got quite unique verification of implant positions for all on 4 cases, all on 6 cases.
So if we have our designing softwares, like we as maxillofacial surgeons have mimics, so everything can be designed on 3-matic as a module of mimics. Do we really need to have the designing softwares along with the intraoral scanner?
No, not really. I mean, it depends what you're trying to design. I would say for most dentists who are doing same-day crowns, if all scanners were the same price and there was no budget issue, if you're going to do if you want to do focus on crown and bridge, it's, you know, the CEREC system is one of the best. And the reason why it's very streamlined and it's very automated. The software is so good, you can cut a prep. The software will design a crown for you automatically that's 90–95% good. You just have to refine it and then it's done. So if you already have a CAD software, there's really no necessity. It really just depends on what you want to achieve. If someone already has a CAD software, I would just say, get a scanner, incorporate it with your CAD software, incorporate it with your mill, and you should be fine. Just know that it's not going to be quite as streamlined as something like the CEREC. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work. I mean, Trios and Itero all don't have milling machines, so they all rely on third-party mills anyway.
Yeah.
I hope
Looking
that
at the
answers the
features.
question. If anything's not clear, please let me know and I can clarify.
No, you are doing very well. Good explanations to all the queries, and thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anybody with any other question? Please go ahead. You can unmute yourself and you can ask for yourself if you have any.
Please do.
Discuss. Yeah. Swati, you are welcome for any discussion.
Hi, Swati.
It was a very nice presentation, ma'am. A good one.
Thank you.
I am, as of now, using CEREC. I've just started using CEREC intraoral scanner, and they have opened up their system, meaning I don't have a milling unit as of now, but I send it to the lab, and they have this milling unit, and they have the system, and they mill it back to me. But one problem which I am facing is that the contacts are not coming out properly as I want them to be. So if you could just give me the tips on how to instruct the lab person to build the contacts, because when I'm using CEREC, I use it just like a scanner. I don't design it. I can only design it if I'm sending it to the CEREC lab. Otherwise, I can use the scanning thing and I send it to the lab which has a milling unit.
Sure. Swati, if you don't mind me asking, are you in India?
Yes, I'm in India, Lucknow.
Oh, that's amazing, because I did a presentation, this is a side note, I did a presentation for another Indian organization and they told me there's no intraoral scanners in India. So I don't know.
No, we have.
I'm really, I didn't know. I'm really glad to hear that you guys have CEREC. That's quite amazing. It's quite progressive because even in New Zealand, most people don't. But anyway, to answer your question, what I'm going to do is, the easiest way to answer it, if you give me one moment, is I'll pull up one of my slides about context just to show you something, if you wouldn't mind holding a few seconds.
No, that's perfect.
I'll just bring up another slide because I feel like that'll be the easiest way to explain this aspect. Let me just bring this up. Almost there, guys, sorry. Okay, here it is. I'll bring this up. Can you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, so this is another lecture I do about context. And what it really comes down to is, this is what it looks like when you design. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the software, but this is what your lab is doing. Now, there's two ways to verify what's happening.
Okay.
Is the issue on your side or is the issue on the design side? And what that means is the issue with the scan, which is very rare, I don't think so, but just to verify, just in case the lab says, no, we did it perfect, the easiest way to verify that is tell the lab to 3D print a model with the crown, because then you can fit the crown they made on the model and check the contacts there. And if the contacts are, I assume you're having two light contacts, are they open?
They're open.
Yeah, so that would be the main.
At times they are open, at times they are a bit tight.
Yeah, so what that really comes down to, what it sounds like is, I'm not sure, maybe your lab has many different lab technicians. And the issue with designing is that when you have a lot of technicians, you don't get consistency because everyone has a different style. So the easiest way to verify is tell them, print a 3D model, and then you can check. And if the crown on the model fits perfectly, like the contacts are good, then there may be something wrong with the scan. But again, that's very rare. What's more common is you just need to tell. So in this image here, this is what all the contacts look like, whether they're interproximal or not. This is the color. Can you see this picture here? So what you need to tell them is basically, if they're open, make the contacts tighter. It's that simple. So tell them, you know, if you know the color gradient, this color map basically tells you how hard the contacts are. So red is very hard, green is light, blue is very light, and that's the same for interproximal.
Okay.
So tell them which color are you making the contacts. If they say blue, tell them
Okay.
make it green. It's too
Okay.
light. If they
Okay.
say we don't know, well then tell them I need you to record it because I'm having issues with your crowns.
Okay. That is, I think, should solve the problem.
Mm.
Regarding the
And
3D printing
just
thing.
get them to do it consistently. That's the key with CAD/CAM. A lot of issues happen when, you know, with a lot of technicians, one guy makes the contact light blue, the other guy makes it green, the other guy makes it red. It's just if they consistently do it the same way every time, the robot will always make it the same. Because the amazing thing about a CAD/CAM milling machine is you can give it 10 CAD designs and every single one will be exactly the same.
Exactly the same. 3D printing will not be so easy because I tried that, and the 3D printing machine which they have it in their lab does that sophisticated system.
Sure.
So I guess
you could take an impression. I know you don't probably, no one likes impressions, but if you don't get anywhere, tell them make the contacts harder. And if that doesn't get anywhere, if it doesn't work, take an impression, a previous impression, pour it up,
yes.
take a scan, send it to them. When you get the crown back, put it on the impression and see, because then that tells you if on the impression model, it fits perfectly, it may be an issue with the scan. But again,
Yes.
that's very rare. I don't find that. Most commonly, it's an issue with the design.
Okay. What I have understood is, can I just repeat that? I would.
You want me to repeat or you're going to repeat?
No,
Sorry.
what I have understood, I would repeat that. One,
Sure.
I would take the impression, put the cast, and once scan that cast and send it to the lab and check it on the cast. That's one way. The other way is I would ensure and ask them that what color is the interproximal area coming on to. If it is blue, I'll ask them to make it slightly green. And I guess by this a bit slow learning curve, since I don't have an in-house milling unit, I guess I would be able to get the contacts the way I want.
Exactly. And if you realize that green or orange or whatever it is that finally works, put it in your lab form. Always make the contacts
Yes.
green, please.
Yes.
But that's only if they use Seric, because Trios looks slightly different. So I deleted it, but let me just go back here.
I use this only. No, I don't
Okay,
use.
good.
I'm using Serec.
Great.
And
So
as per
Seric
the
is always
Indian,
this one.
yes.
And just to clarify, on the first point, I didn't mean scan the cast. Don't do that.
Okay.
I mean scan the mouth, but
Okay.
take an impression, and your impression will be the verification. Because
Okay.
when the crown comes back, you can verify it on the cast. But still scan the mouth, because I don't think the issue is with your scanning.
Yes, even I think so. I think the issue is with the designing. Thank you so much for all these tips. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. No, my pleasure.
Anyone else wants to ask anything? Dr. Jagdish? Dr. Shuchi?
Ma'am, he has actually explained very well. And when until unless we do, we cannot go with all this.
Yeah, understand that. So we are setting up our 3D lab. We have got most of the things. Scanner is yet to come because of the COVID scenario. Everything got just delayed.
Crazy.
Last
Yeah,
6
yeah.
months we have done nothing. Just waiting for the situation to.
Waiting for the scanner then.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we have all those questions answered, whatever they were in the chat box. And everybody sends their appreciation and brilliant presentation, wonderful presentation, great presentation.
Oh,
so
thanks so much.
all
Hey,
those
it's
words.
my pleasure. It's been very fun, and it's always enjoyable to talk with, you know, other progressive dentists who are interested in this sort of field.
Yeah. So is this the end? Yeah. Okay. So we have a certificate for you, and I would share my screen. I'll send it to you by mail, but thank you for being here with us today and sharing your experience with our team. Most of the students will go through the lecture online as it will go on YouTube now. So the students will at their ease, at their preferred time will go through it, and it would be a great learning thing for all of them. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for inviting me. And again, if anyone has any questions, please forward them to your faculty, and I'm sure they can get in touch with me. But also, you can contact me directly. I'd be happy to help.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Richa, you need to end the meeting because
Yeah. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
We can have a group photo,
Yes, ma'am.
please.
Everybody can switch on their videos.
Sure. With masks or without masks? No, I'm joking.
We can remove our masks for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, where's the camera?
Thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay. Then we'll take a photo.
It's clicked. Is it clicked, ma'am?
I have taken.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. I hope
thank
it
you.
was enjoyable.
Yes.
See you later.
Am I end it?